The next thing we need to do, now that we have our motherboard mounted and we have basically put the case upright again, our next step is to mount the power supply, followed by the peripherals. So let's start with the power supply. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this one has a power supply that's actually bottom mounted. There's a grill here for airflow, and it also has a filter underneath to trap any contaminants coming in. So I'm going to use a Cooler Master power supply here on this one, and this again is one of my favorite supplies. It's a Cylon M Pro. This happens to be a 600 watt. This again was on sale for $69 from Newegg. It's a modular supply. It's a single rail supply. Excellent for these type of builds, completely silent. Then they just do a great job with it, and the pricing is just absolutely outstanding for a modular supply. This is an 80 plus bronze rating, so it's a very efficient supply. Okay, so let's start. Here's what the supply looks like. Actually, run-of-the-mill 140 millimeter fan out in the back. We have only two cables coming out of it. One is for the CPU and one is for the motherboard. So mounting this is fairly straightforward. We're just going to move these cables out of the way here, and we're going to actually just slide it in there, and that's pretty much all there is to it. We do have 4 screws to attach, so we will put those in the back, and you can kind of see where they mount. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put in the 4 screws that came with the power supply. And again, I just put them in loosely first and make sure that there's nothing kinked or twisted or anything else. And let's put the last one in here. Oops. And again, we're going to just torque these down. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, that basically mounts the power supply for us. Now the next step is to go ahead and let's mount the hard drive. Now, this particular case happens to be very slick in terms of hard drives. This has a little lever on the side which pulls up a lock which allows you to pull the trays out. Now the trays are adaptable to both 2.5-inch SSDs, which are actually screw mounted, and then if you do put a hard drive in, they have 4 rubber pads which I've already applied on here, which actually helps the noise and vibration, and they're completely toolless, so they just snap right in. So let's take the drive out. For the OS, I'm going to use a Caviar 640, and we're just going to pop that guy right in there. And there we have it. That's all there is to popping the hard drive into this case. So once we're done with that, we'll go ahead and actually insert it in there correctly. And there we have it. And of course, if you're mounting additional drives, you can go ahead and mount them all at this point. Once you're done with that, you can just lock it down, twist the thumb screw, and your drives are locked in place. Pretty straightforward. Okay, our next step now is to do a little bit of cable routing, because we got to get some stuff connected. Before we do that, we're going to actually mount a 5.25-inch device so we can load our operating system and such. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and mount the 5.25-inch device, which slides right into the front here. Slides nicely into place, and using the toolless lock, you position it, snap it in place, and we have our 5.25-inch device installed. And that's pretty much it. the first couple cables we're going to attach out of this power supply is going to be the motherboard cables. So we're going to actually run those up through the opening here. Now, not all motherboards or not all cases have this type of cable routing, but the ones that do, take advantage of it. It does make your build a little bit easier. Also, some of these are grommeted in here. This happens to be polished, so it's not sharp, but there's no actual rubber grommet. Some of the other higher end cases are grommeted, which is kind of nice. Not necessary as long as it's not sharp. And these are all nicely finished, so it's not a real problem. The other thing is the motherboard connector comes split. So you kind of need to be cautious about that, because it does come in two pieces, and the reason it comes in two pieces is because you have some of the older boards that use a 20 pin versus the newer boards that use a 24. So again, you can just snap it together. You can actually insert it into the case, into the motherboard, I mean. And go ahead and pop that guy in there. Make sure that they're both plugged in all the way. And there you have it. So we'll dress this up a little bit, and we'll do some more of that obviously as we finish this thing up. So that's the first one to come across out of our power supply. Now the second one's a little trickier because you don't have a real easy way. In most cases, these cables aren't long enough. Your objective is to get way up here into the CPU. Now, you can do it a couple of different ways, but most of the time it requires a cable extension.